everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's video. And boy, do I have a good one for us today. As some of you might know, I have a CNC machine up in my wood shop that I use to create things out of wood and do engravings and different things like that. And one of the not so pleasant things about using a CNC machine is if you design something that takes multiple tools in order to cut it out, like something to rough something out and then something to smooth it out, and then maybe, another tool to engrave something over top of that. It takes a long time to, change each of the tools and get the height put back in there. And it's not the easiest process in the world to do. So I upgraded my Onefinity CNC machine to an Elite Onefinity machine here recently, and I also picked up an automatic tool changer that helps with this. And the specific one is a rapid change automatic tool changer, or rapid change ATC. And while I was doing my research and waiting for my order to come from Don over at Rapid Change ATC, I realized that they use 3D printed parts within the little tool changer. And not only do they use 3D printed parts, but he uses Bambu 3D printers in order to print these parts. So in today's video, I'm going to interview Don from Rapid Change and ask him a little bit about his business. We'll go over, how he selected his filament, which is an interesting story. We'll go over, how many scientists he has on staff to check out his filament, drying it, business advice that he might have for those of you that are looking to, get into business, those of you that are looking to integrate 3D printing into your business. So we had a great conversation that's about 30 minutes long, where we go through all of these different topics. So I hope you enjoy that today. So if all that sounds good, then sit back and relax, and I'll get everything ready. All right, everybody. So here we are with Don from Rapid Change, just like I said in the intro. So Don, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lenny. My name's Don Greilich, and everybody out there. And I invented the Rapid Change automatic tool changer about 2.5 years ago. And we do a lot of 3D printing for our manufacturing, actually. And glad to be here with Lenny to maybe answer some questions.
All right, cool. Well, yeah. So, a lot of my viewers know that I have a CNC in the background and actually bought your Rapid Change. And I noticed that in one of a comment somewhere that you had mentioned that you had used Bambu printers and everything like that. So I had reached out to you. So I really appreciate you, spending some time today. So, start by telling us a little bit more about Rapid Change and exactly, kind of what you guys do with CNC machines.
Okay, so I stumbled on an idea for changing tools with common high-speed spindles. I was really just looking for a pick and place kind of deal. I assumed that the spindle threads spin on, so I figured that I would give it a shot. And like I said, I just wanted a pick and place. It would take me 15 minutes to change a tool every time I'd wanted to, because I'd be I wasn't using the machine all the time and hunting for my wrenches or the right tool. And so I thought, man, if I just had a little rack where the spindle could go down, surely it can spin the nut on. And I figured, I'll just snug it up but how much nicer would it be just to push a button, to change your tools. So I tried it the first time, and I went to take it off, and it was tight, and it was kind of a mind blower. I didn't expect it. So at that point I thought, oh my God, this could really actually change tools. without any human intervention to tighten it up or not. So I played with it for quite a while, about 7 months. It took me to really get it to be
Wow.
reliable. Uh, the geometry with a hexagonal nut did not work at all when you go to try and drop it off, because that nut spinning at 1500 or more RPMs coming to a dead stop, it would get stuck in that socket. So I almost gave up at one point, but it took me about 7 months, and then I finally had a light go on, and I just put three points of contact in there because I had been whittling away at the geometry the whole time and nothing worked. So I went to three hardened pins actually, and that stopped it from jamming. I think because there wasn't enough surface area for it to get stuck in. And then I ended up with just ball bearings. And the cool thing about the 3D printers is I developed the socket.
So that's really interesting, Don. So tell us exactly how 3D printing is part of your workflow today. Specifically, with that little part right there. How
Yeah.
is it integrated into your workflow? Is it just prototyping, or are you actually manufacturing parts, or is it both?
Both. One thing I can say that I love my 3D printers because prototyping things is so fast, especially with the Bambu. When I got my first Bambu, that there were some things I wanted to try with it, and I was super impressed right out of the box. Not changing any settings, not
Yeah.
and I don't know a whole lot about 3D printing as far as there's a lot of information out there that's real intricate, and I mean, my knowledge even to this day of 3D printers is super basic. I can identify a problem if I see stringing or if I see different kinds of things going on, then I'll jump on YouTube and see if I can find an answer. But so I was really impressed, and there was a couple things. The socket is one of them. I don't know if you can see this. There's three.
Yeah, you could see the little ball
I can't.
bearings. You can see the
Okay,
little ball bearings in there.
my screen's real small, so I can't tell if anything's clear. So the the ball bearings actually are in a spherical pocket. When I started making them, I made channels just like a drill hole channel, and they were undersized, so I could so they would be a snug fit. And it didn't really work out that great. Um, After with a little extra abuse, and maybe after a long period of time, they would start delaminating. The layers would
Mm-hmm.
start
Mm-hmm.
delaminating. I think there's another word for it, but so and I figured that the problem was that I was press fitting those in there, and they were inherently putting a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
I print out of ABS, and I probably, I was printing just at the factory settings for my hot end temperature. And what I ended up doing through some trial and error, well, I went to a spherical pocket inside there, and the ball bearings just snap in, and I just made the cavity big enough so they wouldn't rattle once I snapped. I just made the cavity big. Um, I made the cavity just big enough so they wouldn't rattle, but it wouldn't put a lot of stress on the ABS because they take an impact. But having them cradled in there like that, just barely snug, is perfect. I turned up the temperature about 10 degrees printing them, and I think that's helped with my layer adhesion a little bit. But we print thousands of these, and I think we'll probably be printing them forever because now that I've kind of tweaked it a little bit, they they're almost indestructible for what you're doing with it. Like, there's not a whole lot of wear in this apparatus. It's a very simple deal. This rides up and down in a channel, HDPE. There's no abrasion between parts. It's preloaded with a spring, and you know it. So I love printing these. I don't think this could be injection molded because of the fact that those spherical
Because of the
pocket
pocket, the shape of
pocket
the pocket, right?
here. Uh, no other way you could even produce something like that, in my mind. I actually had a guy come up ask me about it, and he wanted to print it in two parts, but then you're going to end up with a possible point of failure,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
pretty happy with it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. That you used it to kind of prototype to build the part, and then now you're building thousands of those parts. So, how many Bambu printers did you start out with, and how many do you have now? What does your fleet look like now?
So I started out with one, and then now we make other parts for the magazine too, like the motor housings on either end of the magazine, the control arms for the dust cover, pretty much anything that doesn't have to do with the, well, really it's just the housings and the sockets and the control arms for the dust cover. But the when I the first time I started printing some stuff, I thought, oh my god, this is good enough, you know, to put on the product, you know, and because I wasn't anywhere near getting into injection molding. Some of these parts that we print could be injection molded, but injection molding is pretty expensive, and we bootstrapped this thing. So we started. I bought one. I was so impressed. Like 3 days later, I bought another. These are excellent.
It took a
Yeah,
whole
no kidding.
3 days.
Well, once I realized, yeah, I know, right? Well, I wanted to try it out. I'd heard good things about it. I wasn't sure. $1,500 is a lot,
Yeah.
Um, uh, and but it was like immediately I was like, oh my god, we can print our parts. We can print our housings with this. I was machining these housings out of HDPE, and it was insanity. It took forever. A lot of wasted material. I mean, the thing is from the shape of it, it's 90% hollow. So it was. It wasn't. I didn't appreciate it much. So I just fell in love with the Bambu. It was so fast. I had crealities. I had a couple different crealities. I think my last one was an Ender 3, and I had like an
Mm-hmm.
S10 or something I got in like 2018. And I just could not believe how fast that machine is. And not only fast, but really good quality, and sometimes the seams are a little unsightly, but we figured out how to turn the part, put the lineman on the back so it ends up on the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of the
Mm-hmm.
part, just playing with it a little bit. And now, then a couple months later, I bought a couple PS ones because they're a little less expensive, and I wanted to see how the quality matched up,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the X ones better. So we just ended up we ended up with a partnership with Onefinity CNC. They did a bunch of testing on our tool changer, and so they placed an initial order with us, which was very nice. And so I bought five more. Right? Did I buy five more? Six. Did we buy five and six? Yeah, we bought
And are
five.
those the ones that you told me that you took advantage of the sale that they have going on right now,
I
right? And you
did.
got
Yes,
five more.
absolutely. Yeah, about five more X1s. So
Nice.
so we've got 8 printers, I guess. It's not a huge farm or anything, but it's nice. It's nice to have. I love it.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the filament that you use for your parts. How did you come about selecting your filament? Did you hire a team of 17 different scientists and engineers to do field studies along with catch-up testing, or how did you go about selecting which type of material that you would use for the parts and stuff?
Yeah. Well, I thought I might need to do that, but I didn't have any money, so I just got on YouTube and started looking around. Um, so yeah, so I really didn't put a lot of thought into it. I knew that PLA was easy to print, so I started out with some PLA. I got on Amazon and Polymaker got the bid for no other reason, no real reason. I just I thought Polymaker. I don't know if I'd heard of it before. I think I might have used one of their filaments once before. Seemed like it was reasonably priced, and I tried it and I liked it. And then when I went to the ABS, I just stuck with Polymaker. Um, and actually, when the Bambu sale came out here, I bought 20 boxes of ABS, and I'm not sure I like it as much
Really?
because, well, only because the the Polymaker has kind of a more of a matte finish to it,
Mm,
and it could be temperature. Like I said, I got it set a little hot, so the Bambu ones seem to have a little more shine to them. But I'm using those exclusively on the towers that I'm doing for this new tool changer we came up with for Onefinity. So I may just stick with it because there's quite a difference in look. But as far as yeah, I just like I ended up, and those are really the only two that I've tried. Like it works great. I I don't like to fix things that aren't broken most of
yes.
the time.
Same. If it works, it works. Don't
Yeah,
mess with it, dummy.
yeah, yeah, right.
So with using ABS, what do you do for drying and all of that before you print? What is your whole workflow on drying the filament and all of that? Do you dry it or do you just throw it in there and print?
I print it. No, we don't. I've never had to dry anything. Um, I'm in northern Michigan. Um, they don't sit around on the shelf. Now, I did pick up some. I picked up some TPU off the shelf a little while ago, and I went to do some printing with it, and it was obviously wet, or because it didn't print very well at all. I just ended up ordering another roll to do what I had to do, and it was fine. But no, we probably go through it fast enough, maybe where it doesn't matter. Um, but at the same time, I've had some sitting here that, yeah, I've just never noticed really a problem with it. I've never noticed a problem with it. I
Yeah.
don't know if the humidity in here is just right or what. But
Yeah, I generally on my videos try to show, what the manufacturer says to do in their instructions and go through kind of the drying and all of that. And I
yeah,
have noticed that drying does help with some stuff, but I'm like you, whenever I print stuff for like my wood shop, if I need a little jig or something like that
yeah,
or something to hold
yeah,
a corner together, I usually print it out at ASA or ABS,
yeah,
and that roll's sitting right up here, and I'll just grab
yeah,
it and throw it in the AMS and print it. And I don't generally do like 12 hours of drying just for one little
right.
print in my things. So I think it's very interesting that you don't do, you don't have a whole blast furnace or something
Yeah,
for all of the filament that you go through or whatever. So I think that's really good to know in practice. That even with manufacturing it, when you're going through it so fast, you may not need to print it because I'm sure they dry, or you may not need to dry it. I'm sure they dry it before it comes out, and it has the little silica packs in there
sure.
and everything. So if it's not
Yeah,
just sitting out in a really humid place, which Michigan's not it's not a desert there, but
no,
if you're not just letting it sit out a whole lot, I think you're just fine. So that's very interesting that you don't do any drying or any of those type of procedures with the ABS. But I have found that some do, like TPU, some of the glass fiber, carbon fiber filaments, some of those ones that have a really high temperature,
yeah,
those I find generally you do need to dry with it. But ABS, ASA, those print as easy, and they're higher temperature, but I feel they
yeah,
print as easy as like PLA or PETG, really.
yeah, yeah. The only difference I've noticed between the two and that's all we do is peel. Well, I have done a little pet G here. I was trying to do some clear stuff. It didn't really pan out like I wanted to, and a little bit of TPU. And with the TPU, I printed nylon and, like you said, carbon fiber and stuff. And those things are pretty. Some of those are pretty finicky sometimes. And I was like, right, they're vacuum sealed, so I guess it don't matter how long they sit on the shelf until I open them. But and it might take a week. We might have filament on for a week, maybe a little longer than that. Before it runs through the roll. Some of them we're changing. It just depends on what we're doing. But I've never run into a problem with the ABS being wet.
So with thousands of those things, you've never had to micro focus on that. That's a shock. That's going to be a shocker to a lot of
No,
people.
yeah, no, I don't micro focus on anything. If it doesn't stick, okay, it didn't stick. Um, I the only thing that I know, I was going to say the only thing I've really noticed the difference between the ABS and the PLA is the ABS will tend to warp,
Hmm.
in certain
Hmm.
circumstances.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but with these guys, never warp. I print 25 of these at a time.
Really,
You know,
25 on a plate at a time.
25 on a plate. It's like a 5.5 hour print, but you know, it you're like 30 seconds, right? A plate, really. You pull the plate out, put another one in there, and hit go. And yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's that's impressive. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's get outside of the 3D printing in general or whatever, but what advice would you have for someone, that's getting started in 3D printing or just in doing maker stuff, into getting business? What type of advice would you give somebody that was, advice would you give yourself if you were starting out again?
You know, don't be afraid to make mistakes or
Mm-hmm.
do something and not have it come out quite right. I mean, a lot of development, or maker stuff, whatever you're doing, it's just it's a lot of trial and error, and so um just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that something's not going to be right and that you have to have everything tweaked just right or stuff has to be dried. If it does, if you hear it snap and crackle and pop while it's printing, then you know that, okay, well, it might need to be dried. you know but I yeah, I just try everything that comes to mind, you know.
And would that be similar advice that you would give somebody that maybe already has an established business that's looking to integrate 3D printing into some of their workflows? Similar to like you were drilling holes before and now you can just model and 3D print it and you'd never be able to kind of machine that type of thing.
Right.
What advice would you give somebody that's maybe looking at bringing something into their business like that with 3D printing?
Well, 3D printers are fantastic for, like you mentioned earlier, printing up little jigs, um, prototyping. I mean, it's so cheap, it's so inexpensive, And now I would say get into a modeling software for sure and get learning modeling. That's probably the biggest learning curve, I would think, is learning, Fusion or Rhino or um, something like that to model your stuff. Now, you mentioned something about scanners when we were talking earlier. I don't know. I've never scanned anything like to scan it and then get a model from that scan to print. I've never tried that, but so everything we do, I do everything in Fusion 360, Fusion. I guess it's not called 360 anymore, but so yeah, I model everything up, and it's just fantastic. You can get a part in your hand and in a very short period of time and make tweaks. And I mean, just I couldn't live without 3D printer, not just for printing our parts, but for all the development.
Oh,
And we're constantly, as you can imagine, CNC machines very like, you know, they're about as unique as every other person that has one. So trying to be, have a product that's kind of universal. I mean, when I came up with the tool changer, I was like, guys are going to dig this. It's cheap, it's easy, it's reliable, and I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you got a machine is supposed to be automated. I think a lot of people might get into CNC machines, and then you do your first job where you got to have 3 tool changes.
Oh,
And it probably don't take more than 2 or 3 jobs like that. Maybe the first one where you're going, this is a drag. So, yeah, my biggest thing was get this out there to as many guys, as possible. I think it's got some light industrial capabilities, but the hobby market, the maker space market, small business, it's it's a huge time saver, you know, and time is money. Whether you're making money at it or not, time is still valuable, you know. And so, anyways,
yeah, yeah, I agree. I too have moved over to Fusion for pretty much everything these days. I started with SketchUp, went to Tinkercad, then went to Fusion. What I really like about Fusion is it's the same program for CNC and for 3D printing. So I can model something for 3D print, hit the little 3D print button, send it right over to Bambu Studio, and it'll print it out. For the
what?
CNC stuff, I just go to manufacturer, build the tool stuff, all the tool paths.
Yeah,
It's G code. They're both sending out G code, but
right,
just in different
right.
ways. And doing that, so there's a bit of a learning curve, I will say, with Fusion over
Yeah,
others that I would say a lot of stuff isn't as intuitive as you might think, but I think it's just the complexity of everything that you can do in there is really the big learning curve. But once you get the hang of it, there's so much. Every time I need a little thing, even light switch covers.
yeah,
That's a 5-minute model. Send it to the printer, bam, and you have a new light switch or outlet cover, or different things like that. And you can model and print it before you could go to Home Depot and back and pay $1.50 for one, and it only costs you like 20 cents. So like I could
yeah,
only imagine, like I don't own a business or anything like that, but I could only imagine how useful it might be to folks, trying to get into it. And the big thing that I would say is, um, look for something that's easy to integrate. And I think that's part of the Bambu promise, right? With the RFID, with the, you kind of set it and you can replicate something over and over and over and over and over again and know that it's going to do that. When I started out on a Creality 3D printer as well, and I kind of gave up on it because I had to tinker with it too much just to get, I
yeah,
just wanted to print, I just wanted to design something and print it so I could go use it to make, something out of wood or something in my shop or something like that. And it was too hard to do that. So I get some people's angst or fear against that, because I've had not so great experiences with 3D printers where it wasn't something that helped. It was more of, something that I had to tinker with and micro focus on this, that, and the other just to get a straight print and all of that stuff. Where with these printers, it's kind of set and forget. You just kind of design your thing and hit print, and it kind of goes from there. And yeah, you can calibrate and dry filament and do all of that stuff, but I think it's really cool to hear that you don't absolutely have to do that to be successful in business and with 3D printing in business.
yeah, yeah. No, the reality, the ones that I had were, it was just like you said, and they never really. It didn't matter what I did with it. I never got anything anywhere close
To the
to the
quality.
quality
Yeah.
from the Bamboo. Oh my God. And it was, very simple. We have made very few tweaks to it. Like I said, I turned the temperature up a little bit, get a little better adhesion with the ABS. We've learned a couple little things, but when I was running my Crealities, man, I was constantly on YouTube going, what do I do about this? And finally it was just like, I didn't even like using it. I didn't even like using it. Not to
Mm-mm.
mention it was super slow,
Yeah.
super slow.
Yeah. That
Anything
too.
that anything that I'm printing today that takes an hour would have took 5 or 6 hours with the Creality, no
Yeah,
question about
definitely, definitely.
it. And then you don't know what you're going to get till it comes out. And the other thing is, these are they're plastic, they're ABS, but they're engineered to withstand, the what it needs to withstand, and they last. I mean, they'll last a long time. I wouldn't say they last forever because nothing does, but I'm really super happy with it. And they are the size of them is fairly precise. Like there's not a whole lot of there's a little bit of slack, for just but not much. And they're all exactly the same. I don't have to, the tolerance, it holds the tolerances real well. Even when the nozzles wear out, start wearing a little bit, I don't really, I don't I don't put calipers on every part that comes off or anything, but I just know because they fit together with parts of the machines
Hmm,
and,
hmm.
and so, yeah, I wouldn't, honestly, the thing I don't really like the cloud part, but
That's one of my negatives towards it too, is the
you
whole
know,
send through the cloud when I have a network right here.
uh, at the end of the day, it's like I don't even have time to worry about that kind of stuff. I got way too much to think about. So it's all right. But I am interested. I'll have to check out the running straight to the printer from Fusion because I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, in the place where you go to save the file, that little hamburger drop down, there's a thing that says 3D print. You
Yeah.
select that and you select by software, and then you got to point to the file. If you ever get hung up, I'll show you what the file
Uh,
path is. But you
okay.
point to Bamboo Studio, and then it'll send it
Okay.
directly into Bamboo Studio for you to print from there.
Gotcha.
I may
Okay.
have to make a video on my channel on how to do that.
I think I played with trying to set that up once when I had the Creality and I couldn't get it really to work right. So I never really even tried it again. I do all my CAD, yeah, CAD CAM and Fusion, and then, set my run my tool path
Yeah.
strategies for CNC. But yeah, yeah, that'll be
Yeah,
nice.
I'll have to make a little
I
short video to
generally
show that.
export step files and then import them into Bamboo right now.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Yep.
save,
Yep, you can do it that way, or you can just send it right over. So that's pretty easy.
yeah.
So that's all the questions that I have, Don. Why don't you finish us out and let people know where they can find you, and tell us a little bit more about that partnership that you have with Onefinity, which is the CNC machine that I have. So where can people find you, and tell us a little bit more about your partnership with Onefinity?
Okay, so rapidchangeatc.com is our website. And you'll see we have a Discord server with over 1,000
Oh, nice.
people on now, that we use as a community and do a lot of support. I'm generally always on there, and actually we've got a lot of community guys that help, with questions and stuff like that. People have a lot of questions about it always, so we have a community there. And yeah, Onefinity is we've got an exclusive deal with them. They're really the only OEM that we plan to work with. Um, and I think it's a great partnership. I've from the beginning I've wanted to see it on somebody's machine where a guy could just go and buy a machine with all the bells and whistles, and they definitely, in my mind, have the best entry level CNC machine on the market. There's no question about it. With them, especially the Elite with the Masso, is really very stable. Oh my gosh, it's great machine. And having a tool changer on a CNC machine is kind of like I want it to be. Eventually within the next few to several years, you're just not going to have a CNC machine if you don't have a tool changer. It's too simple, it's too reliable, and it brings it right down to the hobby, to the maker guy, the guy in his garage. You know, I mean, ATC systems are upwards of 3,500
Yeah,
bucks. You know, you
they're
get way up
expensive.
there around 10 grand, you know, for some of them. So, and they're very complicated. You've got run a compressor with air dryers and solenoids, or you know, special spindle, and this just works with any high speed spindle. We're actually integrated with about 10 different controllers: Mach 3, Mach 4, Masso, UC CNC, Fluid NC. We're getting ready to do a Gerbil. We're gonna branch a fork of Gerbil 1.1 because that's probably like there's millions of machines that run on Gerbil. Like a lot of, you know, Shapeoko, some of these other machines, all Gerbil. It's all Gerbil. I just found that out not too long ago, which blew my mind. So my son is a genius. He wrote all our soft. He's written, you know, 99% of our macros and scripts for all these different controllers. Um, and so we're going to fork Gerbil 1.1 and write the tool change into the firmware. That way, guys with Shapeokos, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure Shapeoko runs on Gerbil. I think most of them do, and they're just kind of hidden behind their name. When it comes to the firmware, it's Gerbil. You know, if you can run it on G Sender, it's Gerbil. Or a lot of the like Universal G Code Sender, a lot of these other senders will tell you what the flavor of the firmware is. So, um, yeah, we're constantly developing and making it better, and making it a broader uh, integration, you know, with more machines.
Yeah, definitely. And I will tell you that I have the Onefinity, and the first thing that I needed to cut out that required tool change and having to set the height and do all of that stuff, you know, it takes a few minutes to go in between tools, where with the tool changer, and now, you know, with my setup now, I just kind of put that into the G code in Fusion, and then it kind of does that on its own. And you know, it goes and it picks up the first tool, cuts everything out, drops it off, picks up the next one, comes and cuts it out, and it makes it a lot more useful. And you know, just imagine 3D printing. You know, if every time you had to do a color change, it took 5, 6, 7 minutes to, you know, change your spool, change the nozzle, because that's essentially what you're doing, right? You're changing the nozzle, you're changing the spool, you're changing the whole way that you're cutting or printing, right? It would
Yeah,
make it a lot less useful to do than like with the Bambu printers that we have now, where you can do, you know,
yeah,
the automatic material selector and
right,
whatever, right, to go
right,
through
right.
those different things. That was
Yeah,
kind of game changing in the same way that I think your product is game changing to the CNCs. And like you said, the only other option out there is like $3,000, and I don't think that it's as good, quite frankly. So you come in at a great price point. To it's like a tenth of
yeah,
the cost, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know, there's pros and cons for all of them, but you know, I don't imagine I'd ever see our tool changer on a Haas milling
Yeah, yeah,
center. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
that's a whole nother animal. But when it comes to router tables, even your 8, 9 horsepower spindles, it's
Yeah.
perfectly acceptable. We're working on some of these other kinds of spindles are belt driven, and so we're playing with that a little bit. But any high speed spindle, even the little DC motor spindles, you know, like your little DC motor spindles on the Genmitsus and the
Hmm.
little really
Hmm.
small deals. Though I've done tool changes on a 75-watt DC motors. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tiny.
The trick with those is the only trick with those is getting the spindle to run in reverse. I was playing with it, and I set up a dual channel relay, and then I just by hand, I just wanted to see if it would tighten it up, you know, a little
Hmm.
tiny
Hmm.
75 water. And yeah, it did. So it's
That's
crazy.
amazing. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, cool. Well, really, really good talking to you today. This is a very, very interesting experience and
Yeah.
conversation that I think a lot of people will definitely enjoy. And especially seeing functional 3D printing at a manufacturing level with Bambu, I think is something really, really cool to see. So I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day today to speak with everybody and to all of my viewers out on my channel.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, it's my pleasure. It's fun. I like to talk, so why not talk about something I enjoy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so to everybody out there, if you like what you saw today, be sure to smash that like button and hit the subscribe button. And I'll see everybody on next week's video. Thanks for watching.